So, the idea of living without judgment is something that is a common theme or idea that is proffered in the self improvement industry. Deepak Chopra would advise you to judge nothing that occurs in your life. In the early 2000s, Dr. Richard Carlson had great success with the book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. And of course, there's many other versions of this, but the idea put forward by all these thinkers and all these transformational figures is that when we judge, when we put judgment into the situations in our lives, we create chaos and ideas and pain that doesn't need to be there. And I agree with all of that. And it is a way that I try to live my life. And it might be a way that some of you try to live your life. But of course, the operative word with some of this is try, isn't it? Because if you're anything like me and you're trying to live this non-judgmental life, sometimes you don't quite meet the standard. Sometimes you find yourself making judgments when you don't really want to. Perhaps it's human nature. Perhaps it's a habit that we haven't quite kicked yet. Perhaps it's just human imperfection. But sometimes, at least for me anyway, I fail at that. So I began to think about, what about those times when I fail? What about those times when I don't reach that aspirational standard? And then that is when I came up with the idea of catch and release. Of course, many of you will recognize catch and release as a fishing term. It involves fishing and getting one out of the water and releasing it back into the water. And that analogy is one I think is important, or a good way to look at what happens when we cast a judgment. Because more often than not, the inclination is to try to deny that you're having the judgment or try to ignore it. And then I think when we do that, it still exists, it still festers, it still sits within us. And those harms about judgment that Deepak Chopra, Dr. Carlson, and many others try to impart upon us is lost because it's there. We're just trying to ignore it. So catch and release has to do with the idea of once that judgment is there, that we, instead of trying to ignore it, acknowledge it. That we kind of catch it, whether it's in our mind, in our heart, wherever it is, and we catch it and we look at it. And we realize, we acknowledge that we're making this judgment. And we try to examine why we're making the judgment. Why is this person cutting me off on the road to work so irritating? Why is the long line at the grocery store so irritating? Why am I so mad that somebody accidentally stepped on my foot? Whatever it is. And you look at that judgment, you think about it, and you think about the reasons behind that judgment. Because more often than not, it doesn't have to do with what's happening, but it has to do with other circumstances in your life. And you look at that, and once you've caught it and you've looked at it, then you simply release it. You simply distance yourself from it. It's not within you anymore. You've looked at it, and you realize why that's the case, and you can simply let it go. And that way, what that does, to my thinking anyway, is that it lessens the impact that that judgment can have on you. Because if you can't be non-judgmental completely, perhaps you can at least limit or contain the impact of that judgment by acknowledging it, understanding it, and letting it go. I know it helps me, and I sure hope it helps you. And with that, I hope you have a great day.